It should be no surprise that the most important character in your story is the protagonist. After all, they are likely the one telling the story, or the one the readers are seeing the story through. However, what do you do when your protagonist feels flat? Well, in today's video, I'm going to be giving you some solutions for this and talking about how you can create a protagonist that feels memorable and believable. So when it comes to creating a good protagonist, the very first thing you want to do is you want to give them a strong goal. In fact, the goal will be the most important part of this character type because it is the goal that drives them in the story, and the protagonist's goal is likely the goal that the rest of the story will be centered around. So once you establish the goal, whether it's to defeat the main antagonist, whether it's to fulfill their personal dream, whatever it is, you need to find a strong motivation. It is the motivating force that will make this goal more important. So don't just create a goal and leave it at that. Ensure that your character has a really strong reason why they want to achieve this goal. Finding this why and this motivation will make your protagonist's actions feel a lot more important in the story. It raises the stakes of your story when your character has a goal that is so important to them that they must fulfill no matter what. And then when you are building this goal and motivation, it's also very important to focus on the challenge that is preventing them from having this goal right now. This challenge will make your protagonist more believable as they continue to reach towards this goal. As your character works towards their goal, this is usually where internal conflicts will come to the surface. The internal and external conflict is another really important key part to creating a good protagonist. Without the internal and external conflict, your character may feel flat because they are less believable, they feel less human. We all have our own internal conflicts, and internal conflicts are the fears or doubts that go through our mind when we are facing different challenges. So, when your character has a particular goal and there is a challenge preventing them from getting there, this will usually stir up a lot of different internal conflicts in your character. Every time your character is faced with a new challenge, it needs to trigger or relate to some kind of fear that they have in their own mind. As your character is going through these fears and internal conflicts, it makes them feel more believable. So when your character is faced with a challenge or obstacle, what fear goes through their mind, and how does this self-doubt change the way they take certain actions in your story? Now, this is the third most important thing in order to write a good protagonist. It's making your protagonist actionable. Because your protagonist is likely the one telling the story, or at least the one we see the perspective of, this character needs to be someone who takes action. They can't be someone who simply allows the story to go along and does not make choices. You need to ensure that your protagonist does make choices, and you also need to ensure that there are situations where they make the difficult choices. Now, all of this comes down to your protagonist's personality, of course. Your character might be someone who is less action-driven, but even if they are less action-driven, you need to create situations that force them to make a decision. So some of the most important moments of character development are the moments where they need to make a choice between two very difficult choices. So put your character into a situation where they need to make a tough decision really quickly, and this will show a lot of your character's personality, but it will also reveal a great deal of character development. When your character is put in a situation where they must make a tough decision quickly, this also brings a lot of internal conflict to the surface. So even if your character is not someone who is typically action-driven, put them into situations where they do need to take action, where the reality around them and all of the other characters and the challenges, it forces them to make a decision, even if they're someone who doesn't typically make decisions that quickly. When you are creating these situations where your character needs to make a choice, really use your character's personality. Understand who your character is under the surface, their strengths and weaknesses, their likes and dislikes, and just their morals as well, and how this would affect the way they make certain choices in your story. And then it'll be more interesting to see what decision your character makes when put in this challenging position. Now, when looking at your character's decisions, it's also important to keep in mind that characters tend to be more emotionally driven rather than action driven. Now, I did just mention that when you are giving your characters decisions, you should put them in a challenging situation. But this doesn't necessarily need to be action-driven. In most cases, even during a battle scene, you want to really get to the underlying emotions underneath the scene. And this applies to anything. Even if you're creating a shonen series, which is really driven by a lot of battle scenes, you'll notice that in the best shonen series, these battles are usually driven by the character's emotions. In order to create a good battle scene, you need to understand at the heart of the scene what both characters want and how the characters are feeling. So when you are creating scenes in the story where your character is faced with a challenge, you need to really get to the heart of your character's emotions. You need to understand how your character is feeling and let them make decisions sometimes that are driven by their emotions and their feelings. By creating a character that has emotions and feelings, it makes them feel like someone who is actually real, who is a real human character, and this will make them a lot more relatable to your audience. There might be times that due to your character's emotions and them making an emotional decision, they make a mistake, but this is normal and something to be expected from your character's life. It is something that makes them understandable. So when you give your character emotions and drive them emotionally in the story, it will not only add more meaning to their internal and external conflicts, but it will also make them a protagonist that becomes a lot more likable as a character. Over the course of a story, your protagonist likely has many different characters that they meet along the way. One of the best ways to present other characters in your story is to let them be a foil for your protagonist. Typically, when you look at a good series, there will usually be the protagonist and then a foil character that reflects and highlights the aspects that the protagonist lacks. So there will be one character, for example, who might be really friendly and cheerful, but the other character who might be stoic or a bit cold. And these characters highlight the aspects that both characters have. As your protagonist meets other characters along the way, you should add characters that really help to highlight the traits that your character has. Every character they meet should help to show a different side of your protagonist. Your character should not act the same way to every character they meet. Every character is a new opportunity for you to have more character development experiences, and all of these experiences help your character to grow into who they need to be by the end of your story. So when you are creating your protagonist, these solutions help you to make sure that your protagonist is someone believable and memorable on the surface. They make your protagonist into someone who is likable, someone who your readers will remember long after they have finished reading your story. So thank you so much for joining me in today's video, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know what kind of protagonist you're creating, because I would love to hear your thoughts, and I'm sure others would love to hear your thoughts too. Visit my website midnightscross.com for resources, templates, and workbooks that can help you to level up your story. Again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!